Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Q&A stream. We're gonna go ahead and smash through some of these. Yeah, let's go ahead and just get right into it. So more Q&A questions. Try heck. Oh, okay. Hang on. We're already getting past these. Pancakes asks, "What's your favorite Girl Scout cookie?" I don't like Girl Scout cookies. They taste like crap. Evo says, "Do you remember I tried to do a night version of Kurast?" Yes, I do. Do you still want me to do it? No. I actually answered several of these game questions. Gum Gum, a lot of Gum Gum questions here, asks, "When augmenting people, does the Empire slow the process down to monitor their genetic material to ensure there's no random defects?" No, they just do it properly. Judo Joker asks, "Do you have sheets where you're at?" No, but I used to live in Pennsylvania. And while I was there, I actually encountered the wonder and joy that is sheets. I miss it. Latario asks, "If we knew about as much about ancient history as we do about modern times, what do you think about a Paradox game set in historically accurate 1000 BC? I mean, that sounds kind of cool to me, but then again, I loved the idea of the Imperator game, and apparently it sucked. So, whatever on that front here. Let's kill this music for just a second. What's a good song to play? Let's play some WoW music. Yes. Yes! Questions! And yes, I have heard the Deckard Cain rap. No, I'm not a big fan of it. I don't like I'm a Medieval Man or Serve the Hive either, while we're on the subject. Hang on, some of these are very repeat, or I answered them at the time. WoW music actually does have a WoW factor. WoW's soundtrack is going to get a lot of positives. Really, Maz? Oh, that sucks. I should mention I lived in Pennsylvania back in like 2002. So that's 21 years ago. I can still remember the specific sheets I used to walk to, which was across the way in the college that my girlfriend was at. And we used to just walk over there and grab some food, and then take it back to her dorm and eat. And then have just non-stop sex. I'm joking. We actually never had sex. Judo Joker asks, "Have sex with, marry, or kill the HRE, Scotland, and Croatia?" Obviously, we marry Croatia. That's a duh. No, Sheets with a Z. It's a gas station, kind of, but they kind of became well known for selling food that used to be very good. We kill the HRE. We have sex with Scotland. Mockingburns asks, hold up. Let's try that again. Mockingburns asks, "What are some questions you would ask an interviewer as the person being interviewed?" So I don't really do interviews. What I mean by that is, I have become the emperor of the entire universe! Excuse me, sorry. I think I've been to a grand total of, well, 0 interviews in my life where I got the job. I have been interviewed many times by a lot of jobs I never got. So I think I just interview terribly. I'm not actually joking. I have completely stumbled into every job I've ever had, including the one I'm currently doing. So I suppose my answer would be none. I wouldn't ask anything. Now, I've done interviewing. That's fun. So Justin T says, "I've been having a blast with my Gorn." I've been having a blast with my new Gorn Klingon Rotun and STO, and the new Terran Hydra ship is awesome. Yeah, speaking of which, the new Prometheus is apparently really awesome. Grinding towards the event Chem Bengal. Gonna get a ship or low-buy this year? I'm not sure myself yet. It's a good question. So I took low-buy last year, and I stand by that, pretty much for the consoles. There were several ships I'm going to pick up to get for that. But this year? I don't know. Because the ship I really want is not purchasable solo because STO hates me and refuses to sell certain ships outside of bundles because they want you to spend $200 on it, which I refuse to do. Even if I had the money, which I super do not. So, I don't know. I'm honestly just kind of kicking that decision down the line a little bit, because I'm not sure. Evo asked a question which we answered. It is the legendary Excelsior von Falkenstein. I actually have the Borg Dreadnought. It's a good ship. Can definitely praise it. Mockingbird says, do you prefer red or green grapes? I noticed nobody ever mentions the other types of grapes, but I'll take green grapes every time. Yum Gum says, when looking at heavy armor in fiction, do you have a favorite design? Also, does it make sense to bog down the arms just because the torso armor is the most heavily armored? So to make it flexible and give less armor on the limbs? Sorry, I just realized I worded this oddly. I swear I'm American. Lol. I like armor that looks like armor. No, I don't mean realistic armor. I don't give a damn if it looks realistic. I just care that it looks cool. Having said that, I've always had a fondness for chainmail, probably because I've literally worn chainmail in real life, and it's actually really comfy. So, which voice, if I had to pick for my default voice, would I pick? Master Chief, Commander Shepard, or Solid Snake? Obviously, Solid Snake. There's a lot of Gum questions here. What voice would I go for? Keith David, Peter Cullen, or Patrick Stewart? See, that's a little bit harder, because I actually like those voices. Two of them, anyways. So Keith David or Patrick Stewart? I think I'll go with Patrick Stewart. I mean, come on. Favorite authoritarian institution or political title in fiction? Grand High Admiral Lord something. I forget the whole thing. It's in the Darksaber book. Does Lore wish to work under a Praeteros system? Basically be strong enough to physically win to have power. Might makes right. Well, I'm pretty strong. But no, that sounds incredibly stupid. That's one of the dumbest possible methods you could ever come up with for electing someone who's in charge. The only worse than that would be the Electoral College. Zactaf says, by the time of the sequel trilogy, there are some people still using B1s. Is this unbelievable? Nope. We still use a lot of old stuff in real life. In a lot of ways. Loke says, I'd be interested in seeing what an orc nation would look like if there was a chieftain strong enough to unite them in games. What do you think it would look like? Well, the music that's playing right now is a pretty big hint. Orcs. Orcs in Warcraft. I would also say that I could just picture it in my head. Big ol', roaming kind of steppes, tribal sort of situation, something like that. Sean asked, will Tuvok bring Janeway up on charges for the murder of Tuvix in the Trek rewrite? Who's Tuvix? I'm sorry. Should Tuvok in canon have brought up charges for the murder of Tuvix? That's a good question. No, because there's no purpose in doing so. However, what he probably should have done is had a very serious discussion about mutinying. Evo asks, how's the question queue doing? Evo also asked how my spaghetti was. Yorks. I'll do it when I stream it, Huthor. Trahexia says, if FF13 gets remade, what do you think they should change for the trilogy? Did I ever mention that FF13 isn't even on the rewrite list? We're actually stopping in the FF rewrites after 12. So I haven't ever thought about it. Remember to put the exclamation mark before the Q for questions so that it actually gets the command. So, what would I mean, honestly, the answer is everything. Just everything. Change all the characters. Completely alter their personalities. Change the plot. Change the setting. Change the sequencing. Change the pacing. And change the theme. Okay, done. There you go. And when I say everything, I kind of mean it. Hexia also asks, what I think... Whoops! Hang on. What do I think would have happened if Square Enix stood their ground and made Versus 13 instead of FF15? It probably would have been a better game, because FF15 was a bit of a train wreck. Bamber says, have you ever tried making puzzles? Yes, I do that all the time, actually, when it comes to D&D, primarily. In fact, I'll be doing that for an educational D&D thing with my sister in the future. TSB says, which DLCs do I consider mandatory for Stellaris? I remember that question because I asked you to shelve it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at Stellaris, I'm going to look at the DLC list. Okay, so we've got, you know, I don't actually know which thing adds which mechanic. That just occurred to me. So I'm going to wildly guess here. So I would say Leviathans is a big pick. Absolutely. Add some cool story quests and add some interesting mechanics. So definitely Leviathans. Some of these add new starting states, like Utopia or First Contact. Whether that's good or bad, that's kind of up to you. That's basically changing up early game. Apocalypse is fun, but not really necessary. I know a lot of people who consider Megacorps mandatory. I'm going to turn this down for a second. Now, I'm not sure I would consider Megacorps mandatory. But if you want to do any kind of real corporation stuff, Megacorps is mandatory. So that's Leviathans, Megacorps, and I would absolutely consider Federations mandatory. It's the only thing that makes Federations worth a damn. I know they got overhauled in patch, but really. If you want to become a galaxy-conquering Death Doom, then you definitely want to pick up Nemesis. And pretty much the exact same reason for picking up Overlord. So those would be the 5, I would say. Looking at the list right now that are mandatory. I should mention I have not played the First Contact pack yet, so I'm not sure about that one. Hope that helps. That's my toe. And that is Permeus. Thank you, Permeus. As always. And I suppose you know the question. If you don't, well, I haven't done my job. But Falkenstein says, do you think... Oh, actually, I answered that one. Yes, you can beat Stardew Valley without farming ever. What do I think of this in The Mandalorian? They got Bo-Katan's actress from Clone Wars to do in live action. That's weird. That can work, and it doesn't always. Classic Game Lover says, what do you think of this series overall? I don't know what question it is. Was it hard knowing the Trek ruminations are finally finished? No, that was just like this awesome moment of amazing. I've been working on that project for 10 frickin' years. Or more accurately, 8 years. So. Best MMO opening cinematic. Pandaria, no question. Is the bot alive? No, I killed it. How much damage could Bale, Mephisto, and Diablo do if they were dropped in Warcraft setting? Very little. You gotta understand, the 3 primevals are, honestly, low-level demon lords in Warcraft setting. And Warcraft has a lot of demon lords in it, so they aren't actually hurting for ways to deal with that kind of a problem. Zilok says, who killed the bot? Me. Who's more edgy, says Gum Gum. Diablo 1 or Morinth? Diablo 1. Classic Game Lover says, am I crazy or the sprite work and art design of Diablo 1? We're actually caught up to Diablo 1. This is great. Similar to AoE. A little bit, because, again, clay. Good night, TSB. Have a good one. So, Dr. Winter asked an interesting question here. Yeah, exactly, Luthor. And Diablo's like, I am the Lord of Terror. And Kill Jaden's like, could you deal with that, please? And, like, some rando, like, silver elite just grabs Diablo and shoves him off. Anyways. So, Dr. Winter talking about the walking speed in D1. How extensive does that negative have to be? Would Gen 1 and Gen 2 Pokemon get that negative? Probably not. Yeah, exactly, Luthor. Probably not, because Pokemon Gen 1 and 2 have really small zones. Crossing an entire zone takes maybe 20 seconds, even with the walking speed of Pokemon. And it also has other things like Fly, and of course, the Bicycle to help bypass that. Diablo 1 has the teleporter, that is to say, the town portal scroll, but that's kind of it. Nothing to really mitigate the fact that you're walking everywhere. So, no. Loner says, what I think was Kane's voice direction. Do a Sean Connery impression? No, so I've actually talked extensively about the behind-the-scenes of Diablo during the Diablo lore run. I recommend it. Go watch it. But to summarize excessively, Diablo 1 was made by a couple of college dudes who had no idea what they were doing and were literally living out of the studio for a while there, just completely making it up as they go. I'll tell you exactly what the voice direction was. None. The person just sat down and was like, I need to sound old. Yes, I am trying to sound old now. Because that's one of the most prototypical voices that people tend to do when they try to sound old. Jordan says, Diablo or Warhammer? What would be worse to live in? Warhammer. The warp is the suck. Grey Widow says, does the Diablo rewrite contain an option to mercy kill this dude after this conversation? Well, I remember that. That's talking about Barnum, the drunk. And the answer is no, because Barnum is not actually in the Diablo rewrite at all. This is a bit off topic. What was the gameplay design process behind Diablo 1? Oh, God. Okay. Go watch the lore run. Please go watch the lore run. I'm not going to answer that question. Go watch the lore run. That's what it's there for. How would I differentiate between edgy and actually dark content? Case by case. Severity can be it, but not necessarily. In general, however, actually dark content usually has more depth to it and more build-up and payoff. Whereas edgy is usually like, I was murdered by thousands of kittens, and so I turned to a life of crime and had to eat the concrete off of the ground in order to survive. But I managed to make it. But then my eyeballs were ripped out, but I am here now. And that's it, right? There's no depth there. It doesn't mean anything for the character. There's no build-up to it in any manner, shape, or form. There's no significance to it thematically, or in terms of the plot, or in terms of the character. All it is there to be edgy. And that's one of the big distinguishments. I'm sorry. One moment, please. Can I call you about that later? Question mark. I actually answered that question. Do the paper mark... I actually answered that question, too. Twister says, what's your favorite character in Diablo 1? The Sorcerer. No question. Twister's was the Rogue. JC Ward says, can you... actually, I answered that one. Does the Diablo block include Diablo 4? Jay Palmer asks a question. I actually asked this to be shunted, and I don't think we answered this on camera. So, Jay Palmer says, what is the Breath of the Wild durability system? The Breath of the Wild durability system is awful. It is easily the worst part of that game. I'm not memeing. I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. I am so sick to death about how many people dismiss my opinion on that matter just because so many people have turned it into a parody and a joke. But if you ignore all the memes and all the joking and all the nonsense, it's still crap. Let me try to explain why. So, first of all, durability in general is not something I'm in favor of in most games. There are certain exceptions to that, usually things like survival games or other games that have a crafting economy. What I mean by that is not that there's crafting in it. I mean, a game that encourages you to use resources to keep your stuff up to date makes sense. Like a maintenance economy might be a better way to put that. So that makes sense to have durability. But in almost every other game, it's usually just there as a random tax. Now that's fine, but that's automatically bad, right? You're starting downhill. So that's the first thing. The fact that there's durability at all is already starting at a negative. Then there's the fact that the overwhelming majority, like 95% of the garbage that the enemies drop in Breath of the Wild is, as I aforementioned described, garbage. It is junk. So you could have this really, really nice weapon and go whoosh, and then your really nice weapon is gone. And the argument I always hear is, well, just pick up the weapons from the enemies you just killed. Yeah, they have a couple of spears, and if I'm lucky, they have a sword. So that sucks. But then there's the fact that the durability itself is way too little. There's almost no durability actually on the weapons. You get, I think it's an average of 20 swings with most weapons, which is terrible. Like, that's nothing. Anybody who's actually played the game knows what I'm talking about. You know what I mean when I say that you will go through multiple weapons in a single extensive fight. Anybody who watched my stream of that knows when I started going after the Lionels, the super optional fights, I would take multiple two-handed swords because I would go through them. Yeah, tell me about it, Uthor. So way too little durability, and not a lot of good replacements for your weapons, and durability exists at all. But we're not even at the beginning of how much this sucks. Because you also have a very limited inventory space. You can carry like 7 weapons at the start, or even less than that, I think. You have to do a fairly large amount of side questing, which is basically just straight up grinding, in order to actually gain more inventory slots. So that sucks. So you have limited inventory, and weapons break quickly, and there's all sorts of crap weapons, and weapons break at all. But then you add on to the fact you can accidentally, and it is surprisingly easy to do this, accidentally throw your weapon at the enemy, which normally would be completely fine if not for the fact that throwing your weapon instantly destroys it, regardless of its durability. But then, no, I'm not done. Then we have the fact that there is absolutely no recovery mechanic. There is no method by which to repair these weapons. Now, I've talked about this so much. No, we're probably talking 9 negative worthy Eternus. It is, without question, the worst aspect of that entire game. And it's not just the fact that it's durable. That's what so many people don't understand. The reason I'm going through all these steps is you understand that we're talking about 7 or 8 different gameplay mechanics, which are all kind of interlinking into this mess that is the Breath of the Wild durability problem. Because, yeah, finally, Tears of the Kingdom gives us a repair mechanic, which we have actually seen in the videos, which may help with this. But durability, with low inventory space, with lots of trash that you get, with very easy way of actually breaking completely, with limited inventory space, and no repair. No repair methodology. I think I'm actually missing something there. The system would work as intended. You know, as Huthor said, they want you to try out new weapons. They want you to go out and explore and get new weapons. Okay, that makes sense. A few tweaks, a few adjustments. Don't even have to just overhaul the various systems that are combining. Just tweak a few numbers in various areas, and this system could work. But the fact that there is just so much crap for it is aggravating. The one thing I would make a huge change to, if you throw a weapon, either no durability loss or only 1 durability hit, aka like if you swung it. The fact that throwing a weapon destroys it is bonkers. It's the worst thing about the whole system, because it is surprisingly easy to do on accident, and there is absolutely no recovery from it once you've done it. That sword is gone. The end. Forgive me, but as you might imagine, this is a topic I've put a lot of thought into. Not just because of personal preference, but from a game design perspective. We talk all the time about game friction and how a game needs to kind of force a player to do things. But game friction, as anybody will tell you, is something you need to be very careful about implementing, and it's very easy to go too far with it. And Breath of the Wild goes way too far with it. Now, real quick, one more thing, and then I'll move on to the next question. This has been a long answer. How would I fix all of this if given total control? Ironically, I know exactly how I'd fix it, because I've played Dying Light 1. That is a strange comparison, because Dying Light 1 has nothing to do with Breath of the Wild, other than the fact that it has almost the exact same durability systems, much better implemented. Every weapon in the game can be broken down into scrap. Scrap is your universal resource for repairing weapons. Each weapon... I'm going to let it roll. Each weapon, based on the stats of the weapon, gives you a certain number of repairs that you get, right? So, to explain this simply, let's say I have a sword, and this sword has a repair value of 3. What that means is after I've broken the sword, repaired, and then my third repair, after the third repair, it's gone. It is actually permanently destroyed. Make sense? However, when I say permanently destroyed, what I mean is you can't use it to attack anymore, but what you can do is you can break it down into scrap to repair other weapons. This simple gradient change fixes almost everything about the system. Because now you're not only encouraged to pick up stuff, and to cycle constantly through new weapons, because it keeps the same idea, right? You're encouraged to explore, and you're encouraged to try out new weapons constantly. You find a really nice weapon, you can repair it several times, but eventually you are going to have to find a new weapon. But because it takes so long to finally break, you have a nice big comfort zone there in which to find a new weapon that you actually like. There you go. Done. Fixed. So, sorry for the long answer, but when we review Breath of the Wild during the Zelda block, I am going to pile negatives onto that system. Now, Classic Game Lover asks, speaking of Resident Evil, which one do I think will perform the best? So we're reviewing 1, 2R, 4R, and 5, I think, for the Resident Evil block. Of those, I feel like 2R will probably be the king. I liked 2R a great deal. I had very few complaints with that game. And it was a fantastically enjoyable thing, and honestly, probably made me an overall fan of Resident Evil. Which I never really was before, not counting 4. The other alternative would, of course, be 4R. So, Killing You asks, how do you feel about zombie media in general? Bored, I think is the word I'm going to use. Bored is not even the right word. It's more like someone's like, hey, there's a new zombie thing. And it rolls right off my head, right? Like, it's gone. So what? I didn't even process it. What were you saying? It was a zombie thing. Okay, what is it? What's a zombie thing? Well, what is it? Yeah, complete lack of interest in any direction. Let's see. Apathy might work out. Classic Game Lover says, have you ever streamed the original Doom games? No, but they are part of the Doom block. See you around, Walker. Why did Diablo 1 resonate with me specifically? Because it was a game I could play with my friends, and campaign co-op was extremely rare in the 90s. We had Secret of Mana. Anyways. What is my favorite class in the entire Diablo series? Well, I can answer that now. Wizard from D3, no question. I would probably put Barbarian at the number 2. We answered that. We answered that. Do any of the Diablo games have multiple endings? No. Have I checked out the new zone in WoW? Ironically, even though it's been a week since that question was asked, the answer is yes! I actually jumped in there just last night. Just to hang around and see what was there. Oh, definitely Apathy, Traxy. Jay Palmer says, is the rewrite still happening on the 1st of April? Go watch it. Go rewatch it. Mockingburns asks, I've been watching your tour playlist recently, and while making me really want to play it, you do seem more critical of the game and its faults. Is it because you enjoy the game more than others, or do the flaws stick out more? That's an interesting question. I'm kind of being facetious, Primarch. The only thing, we literally flew out to the new island and tried to do some random events, and one of them was bugged and couldn't progress, and then we just logged. We'll probably actually play it tonight. Yeah, I mean, Huthor is correct. We tend to be more vocal about the flaws of things we love or want to love. And I do enjoy Tor for what it is. But the thing is, you say I'm more critical of the game and its faults. Relative to what? Like, I contest that statement. That feels like an odd statement. Of course, Mockingbird isn't here right now. But if she ever sees this, feel free to leave in the comments explaining how much you hate me and why you think that my opinion on games is dumb. However, having said that, Tor is a game I actually enjoy replaying portions of. We were actually just talking about this a minute ago with regards to, reviewing all of a game. The Tor review was pretty bad because we reviewed the whole game. And a huge chunk of Tor's content sucks. Almost all the side quests sucks. A huge part of the planetary primaries and the planetary secondaries suck. A decent portion of the class quest lines suck. Like, there is very little quality there, percentage-wise. However, if you sit down and decide just to go through the class storyline of 3 of the really good class stories on the Sith side, then you'll have a perfectly good time, right? And I think that's my answer to that question, is I'm not critical because, the flaws stick out more, or I enjoy the game more or less than anybody else, or anything like that. It's just because I was reviewing the entire game, as is my wont. If I just sat down and did a review of Sith Warrior, or an Agent, or Inquisitor, and kind of did only a few little tidbits of things like the planetary stuff, then yeah, if I cherry pick it, it's going to be a great experience. But that's my point. Tim says, do I foresee Diablo 1 being a net positive on the story side? I didn't. I think it was, though. Hang on. Double check that here. It was, +2. What do you know? Delete. Mockingbirds, again, says, I hate you. No. I'm not sure how to phrase this, so hang with me. You mentioned there is no real ending. Is there any real plot or story? Does all the story and plot come from the later games and is backlayered on top of the first game? Yes, that is absolutely exactly what happened. Most of the story of D1 happens in D2 and D3. That is not uncommon. Oh god, I don't know what eye color to give her. What tone are you giving the overall picture? And we need to talk about the shirt thing, too, at some point, Evo. Mr. Red says, what is an identity? Well, it's when if you burn down to your core self as far down as you can go. When you reach the point when you can't go down any further, that's you. We all say the first game is Pong. What is the first actual video game? The first video game. In 1958... Oh, wow, it actually was essentially Pong. Wow, yeah, okay, so it wasn't actually Pong. It was table tennis, which I know sounds like a non-distinction, but it was actually before Pong by 12 years. Wow. My mother wasn't alive when that video game was invented. Jesus Christ. Pika says, what is my opinion on Diablo 4 beta? Will Blizzard mess it up? No, I don't think they messed the beta up at all. Do I think Blizzard will add loot boxes and microtransactions to Diablo 4 after launch? No, I think they'll add it during launch. We'll see. I should mention that by every source I've studied, Diablo 4 was originally designed to be in the format of Diablo Immortal, designed like a mobile game. How much of that has been changed is something we still don't have a lot of information on. Mockingbird says, you are quite experienced when it comes to fiction. Thank you. Both partaking in and making it. Thank you. Do you ever have issues with spoiling things for yourself due to pattern recognition? Ironically, no. It's a part of my brain I have to turn on very deliberately. And if it's not on, then I tend to not notice things coming. As you might imagine, I tend to do that deliberately. Like if I'm going to the movies or whatever to just watch a movie with my friends, then yeah, I'm probably going to just go and just enjoy the movie. If that part of my brain is on, then I tend to catch things about 98% of the time. That's not bragging. Actually, it's quite the opposite. It's kind of insulting because that's just how dumbed down most stories tend to be. Not all, but most. Mockingburns asks, how is... She was present, apparently. How is the AI in Diablo 1? You've been caught in traps multiple times. The AI has been shown some tactical knowledge. I'm not sure if it's good, complex AI, or simple dumb AI. It is very dumb AI. The AI in D1 is very basic pathfinding, go to X, use X ability. It's not even at bot level. It's actually honestly pretty pathetic. Do I think they'll add anything from Diablo Immortal and put it into Diablo 4? Yep. Lunera says, did you see my point that 90% of the game, 95% of the game is PvE, that pay power matters little to nothing, only for PvP? I don't want to talk about this. This is a long-term, large-scale problem. So let me put it to you in very, very, very simplistic terms. Rather than spending an hour, which I don't have, sitting here talking about why I feel that even a game that has no pay-to-win is still bad, and I do, I feel that very firmly. Let me try to simplify this as much as I can. There's... Oh, if hypothetically it was that way. Okay. Excuse me. My apologies, Lunative. If it was hypothetically that way, my opinion isn't changing. It's just... It's not that way. So, if the game was like that, I would still be rather upset at it. I probably wouldn't be as upset at it, but I would be very upset at it. And the reason why is because, first of all, it is still exactly as predatory. You didn't change anything about how psychologically manipulative it was, or about how it tries to prey on people's lack of understanding of cost, or multiple systems, or deliberate obfuscation of information. Pikmin 3 is actually already on the list, DE, although I don't think I can do a capital L lore run of the Pikmin series. But I could absolutely do a lowercase l lore run of the Pikmins. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think I don't own Pikmin 1 or 2. I'm not sure I could get a copy of it. But 3's on the list. So is 4, actually. So, it preys on people. And there are people out there, including you, Lunaruth, who are able to play that and not fall for the traps. But there appears to be a trend with today's Q&A, because even though, you know, an individual might be able to bypass a bad aspect of a thing, that doesn't mean the bad aspect of the thing isn't there. Cosmetics are a very, very common way to try and trap people psychologically into spending more money on a particular work than they otherwise would. It's one of the reasons why it irritates me so much when I see so many people argue and defend games that that don't have pay to win or only have cosmetic microtransactions. And I'm just sitting here thinking, I mean, that's better. You know, that is a true statement. That is an improvement of the overall situation, but that doesn't make it good, right? So even if, in a hypothetical situation, that Diablo Immortal was primarily focused on, like, this stuff over here and all that, it would still irritate me, just less so. Does that make sense? I'm probably explaining this very badly. I mean, I agree, Lunaruth. Most players, myself absolutely included, we like to look cool, right? Right? Like, don't we like to... Oh, man, I just got this robe, and I could dye it, so I've got this purple trim going on. Oh, and it's got a glow that comes with it. Oh, I can only activate the glow if I spend $1 on this one pack. Ah, okay. I'll go ahead and do that. There's so many things they do in Diablo Immortal that... If I could summarize... Hang on. I've got a better way to summarize my problems with Diablo Immortal. You know how Blizzard is Blizzard of Borg... and has been for a lot of their thing. You know how they will take ideas and concepts and iterate on them and improve on them and do more with them? That's what they did with Diablo Immortal, but with predatory practices. Nothing they're doing in DI is different or unique or new, but it's almost all of them. Any given trick that you could think of that a gambling institution or a mobage game, or a garbage game on PC, or console, or whatever you could think of, Whatever game or service or whatever you can think of they're doing that in Diablo Immortal. And yes, it also worked extremely well. Of course it did. They iterated. They did a really good job with it. And that is exactly the problem. Thank you, DE, very much. I will jot that down for Pikmin 3. Much obliged. Thank you. Like, I mean, just it's all the basic stuff, and it even most people are probably cognizant on some level or another of how like, walking into a casino, all the things they do. But most people don't even really consciously process that. They don't really consciously understand how much that studio is doing, or that excuse me, that casino is doing to keep you there, keep you in a good overall mood, and keep you spending. It's a whole thing. Casinos are regulated, but you ever want to talk about predatory practices, casinos, especially Vegas casinos, which I'm the most familiar with, are bonkers. I don't know how it is in other countries, but holy crap, they are very good at what they do. There's a reason they make so much damn money. Sorry, moving on. Didn't mean to get off on a rant. I apologize. Yeah, does Diablo Immortal bring you free drinks? I don't know. Do you log in and get a free thing every now and again? See you around, Primark. Have a good one. So, hang on. Scrolling down a little bit here. Jay Palmer says, do we know how old Gollum is in Lord of the Rings? Yes. I don't know how old. Off the top of my head, I have to Google it, but we do know his exact age. If I could change... Jay Palmer says, if I could change one thing in Diablo 1 gameplay-wise, what would it be? Honestly, the walking speed. There's a lot of things wrong with that game, but just that right there. Let's just change it. Boom, done. Crazy North says, would you prefer a few spells that are useful all through a game, or getting new spells that are progressively better? I think I'd prefer... Like, I'm fine with either. I'm fine with both. But personally, I like the idea of spells that are still useful at the end of the game. Partially because that's harder to design than it sounds. In a lot of games, by default, the stuff at the beginning of the game is just useless by the end of the game. That's true in RTSs, that's true in FPSs, that's true in RPGs. So, I tend to appreciate how much harder that is to do properly. Evo says, do you ever like Kane in any of the Diablo games? No. I didn't kill him, though. Jay Palmer says, how many deaths do you think would have... Oh, hang on. Sorry, we're actually past that. Jay Palmer says, what's my favorite Federation ship design aesthetically? So that feels like a generic question. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of ship design variety in terms of, like, base structure. Like, you got the triple nacelle, you got the quad nacelle, and you've got the shrunk thing, and then you've got the classic swan dive thing. Of those, I'd say the shrunk thing, which is the Nebula and the Miranda. I like the tight boxer look of it. I always have. Evo says, will there be a D&D stream tonight? There might be one Thursday. Nemesis says, besides Chrono Trigger and MMOs, and I'm just going to add FF6 to that list, because the answer is FF6, what is your most replayed game? So, obviously, FF6. After that... It's going to be something old, and it's going to be something I've sped run, which means it's either Mega Man 2, Mega Man X1, or Super Metroid. One of those. I'm not sure which one, but it's one of those. Hell, I'm pretty sure actually I've replayed Super Metroid and Mega Man 2 more than I've played Final Fantasy 6. You know, it's funny you say that, DE. What I plan to do, what I hope to do, is the very first day we stream Tears of the Kingdom, because I won't play it until I stream it, is I hope to just sit there and spend, like, the whole day just building stuff, right? Just having fun with it and seeing what we can come up with. Yeah, exactly, Sean. Having said that, The thing I want to make most is the thing that's probably not possible to make. I want to make a mech. Or a walking tank. Or I'd live with just a tank, you know, an armored vehicle, but that's my main goal. That's the big thing I want to build. Dr. Winter says, so is the extent of design what decides whether class design as a whole gets positive as opposed to each specific class? Would that apply to other aspects as well? For example, skill design versus individual skill trees. I hope so, Dr. Winter. I really do. Good night, Not Zero. Have a good evening. Feel free to remember to watch the VOD, because I feel like I'm going to get you a question at some point. So that's a good question. I don't have an answer for you, Dr. Winter, because it's always about the depth and the quality. You know, a game that has moderately okay classes is probably like 1+ to gameplay for the whole of the classes. But like if there's one class that's really, really good, really well designed, and really processed, then it's like, okay, well, that one gets its own plus. But as you point out, there's also aspects of class design. How well does it feel to level? Does it have any individual talent trees or builds? How good does it feel at endgame? This is actually something I was specifically looking at for Diablo 3. Because, like, the Demon Hunter doesn't feel good to level, but feels good at endgame, right? And all of this stuff is stuff that goes into it. But if you're asking of the exact specific spot where it crosses over the line, I have no idea. Who's my favorite paladin in all of Warcraft? Okay, I gave a memeing answer to that when you asked that. Let me try to give a more real answer to that, because I'm trying not to just say Uther. It's probably Uther. Pre-Shadowlands, I would say. Shadowlands, I didn't like that. I get why they did it. There were some good scenes with Uther in Shadowlands, but I really don't like where they started with him. Tyrion, I was actually thinking Tyrion, because Tyrion is a great example of a paladin who is good, but also overzealous. Like, honestly, yeah, I agreed with that. There's a reason Tyrion, if Tyrion had put on the crown, that would have been bad. I said that during the lore run, and I will say that again during the review. If Tyrion Fordring had put on the crown of the Lich King, that would have been awful. Someone that driven, that zealous, that pushed. Like, he was kind of drifting onto Arthas's general path, you know? But that's a good thing. He's well written. He's interesting. I like it. So, I agree with Tyrion, and also Uther. I actually answered that question. Hang on. Delete. Jay Palmer says, do any of the Diablo games allow you to be evil? No, of course not. They're the evil ones. Have I vetoed Hogwarts Legacy? Yes. Is it because of protest reasons? Yes, that is a hill I have decided to stand upon. I like Liadrin. I wish she got more screen time, which is funny because she actually probably gets the most of the Blood Elves. But they don't usually do much with her. They have a bit of a Tyrande problem with her. Tell the story of Diablo 1 in a few sentences. Okay. Don Crow says, what are some games with the worst deals of immortality? Oh, you said games. I was immediately going to say Saztan from Forgotten Realms, who made just the worst deal for immortality. Holy crap. I don't know. I suppose WoW comes to mind with the deal the Legion makes. That's actually not that bad of a deal, though. I can't think of any. I actually can't. Jay Palmer says, what's your favorite vanilla WoW city? Ironforge. No question. Mr. Red says, what would you say is the most damaging, offensive, or detracting to society singular song in popular music? Unfortunately, I can't answer that because that would require me to know popular music in order to answer it. Hey, Jay Palmer. I've been answering a lot of your questions today. Jay Palmer says, have any games gotten a lore minus for treating the player like an idiot? Yes. Game show, book, or movie. I don't care. If you treat me like an idiot, I tend to not enjoy that. Quite a bit. One of the biggest complaints I've gotten about the Diablo rewrite is the fact that I do not treat my readers, or viewers, I guess, like idiots. And so some people have had trouble keeping up. Because, you know, not used to it, right? Casual Gladio says, what was the first online multiplayer dungeon crawler roguelike that wasn't text-based? Neverwinter Nights. I actually know that specifically. It was a big deal at the time. I even played it. Bamber says, did you run map hack or any other external tools? No. Mockingbird says, how would you write a good no-win situation or you're meant to lose fight? So that feels like a game design question. So I'm going to give you the default answer that I tend to give for those. The easiest way to make a supposed to lose fight is allow the player to win. Now, you make it hard to win. You make it an optional challenge mode, right? Like it's a super boss, like Sir Cothrion, exactly, as Dr. Winter mentions. In fact, in the remake of Final Fantasy II, the Emperor is actually a super optional if you fight him without a certain power, which you do have at that point in time. So technically that would function in the same manner, but it's up to you, and you could always just bypass that and just lose. That's how I would do that. Jay Palmer says, do I ever think RTS games will be as popular as they used to be again? They might. Games rotate. Genres rotate. That's how that works. I guarantee you that if someone major, whether it's financially major or with a lot of cred, was to push RTSs, I guarantee you that RTSs would pick up again, because that's how that works. The reason RTSs died was because developers let them, or more accurately, publishers let them. Jay Palmer says, what's your favorite game for doodads alone? Probably WoW, honestly. I mean, Blizzard are kings of doodad design. I would also mention StarCraft 2 and D3. On top of that, I would also go lean towards FF14 after the patch, which added a lot of great doodad design. But other than those, there's two go-tos I always have. One of those is Chrono Trigger on the SNES, which has astonishingly good doodad design. Not just in terms of the detail and the density of it, but a lot of thought is put into what is where, and it really helps sell the scenes. The other one is Twilight Princess, Zelda, which, exact same thing, right? Those are games that are going to be major doodad pluses when we get there. Jay Palmer says, how similar are set items to WoW sets? Near identical. Lunera says, does D3 have zone separation? I can actually answer this now. Yes, Diablo 3 does actually have realm separation. There is a way to bypass it, though. Unlike in WoW. Hang on, we're going to scroll down a little bit, because I'm not going to answer what I had lunch today, because I don't remember what day that was. Someone says, can you please do a rumination on Fallout New Vegas? No. However, we will be streaming it during the BRPG block. Hopefully that'll be good. Hang on. Assume that Diablo 4 is good on launch. What is the most likely mistake Blizzard will make down the line? I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record, but most likely microtransactions, leaning too heavily on over monetizing it. Which game, this is from Venters, which game had the biggest jump up in quality, i.e. from Diablo 2 to Diablo 3 or whatever? Well, if you're asking just in the Diablos, 1 to 2, no question. Because 1 was 1 and 2 was 2. Having said that, the overall answer for that at the moment, I believe, is Psychonauts. The gap between Psychonauts 1 and 2 is gargantuan. Von Falkenstein says, will you accept help when playing D3 to show off multiplayer? Yes. Disco says, what's your method for making great chili? You know, I've never made the same chili twice. So, my method is to play with the recipe every single time. I'm not joking. However, one thing I tend to do consistently is to just add jalapenos to it. Not from the jar. You get actual jalapenos. You chop out, slice, slice, throw the jalapenos in, and let them sit in there along with the early batch of stuff before you add the couple of the other things, a couple of ingredients. And just let that really soak into the whole thing. Let the whole chili just seep in with jalapeno. It adds some wonderful flavor to it. That's a Path of Exile question, which I've already answered. I answered that one. That one. I already answered that. I've actually answered several of these. Are jalapenos common in chili? You know, I actually have no idea. No, regular jalapenos, Ventures. Like I said, just go to the grocery store, get some jalapenos. Not a jar. Just, you know, Put them in a bag, you know what I mean. Do I think a Diablo MMO would work? Well, I guess we'll see when Diablo 4 comes out. But that's not the question. Do I think it would work? No. Scariest werewolves in any fictional setting. Scariest? Honestly, that's probably World of Darkness, if I was to say. Venture says, if you've never played a Diablo game before, would you recommend a newbie going back and playing 1 and 2, or just jump straight into 3 and 4? I can tentatively recommend hopping into 2, as long as there's some asterisks involved. You know, make sure you play a good class, make sure you know what you're doing, and preferably play with a friend. So a couple asterisks, but if that doesn't appeal to you, skip 1 entirely. I always recommend you skip 1. And 3, you can just jump into effortlessly. I can't speak to 4 for obvious reasons. Do I have any thoughts on The Simpsons episode Homer's Enemy? So I haven't seen that episode in about 20 years at this point. I think it's actually been closer to 18, but it's been a while. I remember being irritated by the episode. Because the whole episode was just a person who wasn't insane walking into the insanity that is The Simpsons setting and then commenting on how insane it was. And that's the episode. Like, it was almost a self-parody, very deliberately. I've actually seen interviews by the writers. They did that very deliberately. Good night, Crazy Nurse. So I remember just being vaguely frustrated by it, because he's just pointing out all the normal stuff that the Simpsons characters do normally. It's that whole... You've heard the joke before, right? Isn't it weird that in RPGs we just break into people's homes and take stuff? So all that episode did was have someone who thought that was weird and then comment on it. And then die. I think that's my thoughts on that episode in a nutshell. Zactaf says, do you think this seems like a big nerf? Our PC in Tor is so powerful, yet we're taken down by a sonic emitter. No, that seems perfectly in character for me if we're playing a smuggler. And as we all know, Zactaf, all we are is a smuggler. I actually answered that one. Jay Palmer asks, is Vitiate going to be in the rewrite? Actually, yes. We are including Vitiate in the rewrite. We're probably going to call him Valkorion. But we are going to include the Sith Emperor, is what we're going to include. We're also going to include Grievous while we're on the subject. Curious who's going to hire him there. Do we know the galactic population in Star Wars? Yeah, it's a quadrillion something. The Eternal Empire? No. Jay Palmer says, what do you think is the best first game for someone to play as a kid? Not counting Minecraft, which actually is a first good game. In fact, I think I've told people before, and this is true, my sister and I have literally done 4 real-life classes for kids, 4th grade specifically, Minecraft tutorial to get people into learning Minecraft. So a good first game that is not Minecraft. The problem is Minecraft is a perfect first game for a kid. And I'm not joking about that. It teaches interactions. It teaches recognition. It teaches planning. It teaches it's very goal-oriented. It tries to encourage the kid to figure out what they want to do, and then once they've determined that, how they want to get to it. Like, Sis and I had a whole discussion about this, and for those of you who know her, she's an actual teacher, so, like I said, 4th grade. I don't think I could pick one better than Minecraft. Yes, all of this is going to be uploaded to YouTube, Jay Palmer. What I think of Pikmin as a series? I didn't like Pikmin 1 or 2. That's why I never bought them. I love the hell out of Pikmin 3, but I've only ever played it with friends, so I've never played it solo. I can't think of one. I'm sorry, Jay Palmer. Minecraft is the perfect tutorial game. It's the perfect way to get kids to learn while still having fun in the process. Gamer Techno says, how long after Starfield comes out do you think modders will start turning planets into Fallout or Elder Scrolls worlds? About 3 months, I'd say. Jay Palmer says, how many prime evils were there in Diablo? 7. We've got Diablo, Mephisto, Baal, Belial, Asmodan, Andariel, and Dariel. Trihexy says, how do you think Geed is going to feel about new trade coming in, eating away at his profits and sales? Oh, it's okay. He's going to die. Gum Gum says, how would you feel if Mass Effect 4 brings the husks back, but in robot form, not controlled by the Reapers? So if they're robots, then they're not husks. So that's my first thought. And if they're not controlled by Reapers, then that doesn't diminish how horrifying they are. Kind of makes me wonder how much of their brains are still in there since green ending. Jay Palmer says, can humans become demons in Diablo? Yes, they can. Loner says, why did they use Tal Rasha, the strongest of all the Haradrim, to house Baal and not someone weak, even though it was a matter of course the vessel would get taken over? Stupidity and or pride, take your pick. The point was that only someone like Tal Rasha could resist Baal at all. Which is really, really dumb if you think about it, because actually, you're absolutely right. They should have put someone super weak in there and just, given him a really weak vessel instead of, the strongest of the Haradrim who could then resist. And it's like, but the goal is to keep him trapped there for eternity, so he's going to lose guaranteed eventually. Anyways. Would a weak person volunteer? Well, they don't need to volunteer. Here, stay here. Diablo 3 is a direct sequel of D2 in that the PC is finishing up the rest of the Lesser Evil, so why is it other than Necro none of the PCs from Diablo 2 show up? Blizzard has this weird hatred of player characters. We've talked about this before. So they like to just kind of eject PCs from existence for some damned reason. Aiden is stupid. Let's see. I found a weird gem that I've just carved out of the forehead of a child who, seconds before, was a giant demon trying to kill me. Okay. So, there's a giant demon, but then I killed the demon, and now there's a gem in the forehead of the child who was hosting the demon. I've got it! When Falkenstein says, what is your opinion about the Warcraft comics in general and the Sunwell one in specific? I don't like any of them in general. There are a few individual moments and scenes which are okay, but if you ejected all of them from continuity completely, I think that would be an overall net positive. Sunwell 1 in specific is one of the better ones and has some decent moments in it, but still, no thank you. I mean, Aiden was never exactly a smart person, Jay Palmer, and that's where that's at. Oh, I know, they retconned it. That was like, I am under Diablo's influence. Still, Aiden was never smart to begin with, so he can only go down. I answered that one. Jay Palmer says, what's your favorite side race in WoW? Of the Gnolls and the Murlocs and all that? So that's a tough one. I suppose Ogres would qualify, but let's skip over that. I actually had a Warcraft 3 map I was building once upon a time, which was the Mongrel Horde. I didn't call it that, but it was the same idea, right? It was all sorts of, the side races unifying against the big major powers. It was a fun idea, and I actually still want to do that story someday. And since I'm doing a Warcraft rewrite someday... Anyways, having said that, Nerubians is a good pick. I wasn't thinking of them as a side race, but I suppose they qualify. If we're adding it to any race that isn't playable, that's a huge list, and I can't possibly pick from that. There's way too many side races at that point. But I think the Sethrak would also be very high up on my list. Sethrak, Nerubians, and I suppose Naga. I'll give you 3. Dr. Winter says, for RFF1, do you want auditions for the bigger roles, or is it open to all roles? It is. If I open up auditions, auditions are open. Novarius says, have you had water lately? Nope, I'm out. Gum Gum says, since the Empire is big, is it a mess in the same vein as the Byzantines or the HRE? Nope, it's also not that big, but still no. Actually, I already answered that question. Do you know what time the Diablo rewrite starting on April 1st? Yes, it started at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hang on. Ten-Headed Hydra says, do you sympathize with Marius at all? Of course I do. Poor Marius. He went through a lot of mess. Like, poor Marius. Who are the Sethrek? They're the snake people in BFA. But simply, I actually thought they were going to be playable. They're not. J. Palmer says, was there any moments of Neelix being stupid you didn't mind? No. They universally used Neelix as being stupid for dumb humor. And I'm not a big fan of dumb humor. It was either awkward or actively embarrassing. Venters says, in the Diablo rewrite, do you portray the Dark Wanderer as brave, foolish, or something in between? You know, if you go watch the rewrite, Venters, you can get an answer to that question. Umbral Magnus says, favorite class in D3? Wizard. And also Barbarian. Mostly Wizard. Which Twister says, which Necro do I like the most and why? D2 or D3? D3, because it's D3. Also, it's a lot of fun in general. I'm afraid we're gonna have to kill you now. You're there we go. Okay. We've actually answered a lot of these. How many pages do we have left at this point? We're down to 16 pages. Holy crap! I was actually hoping to finish this today. Hey, Eternus, I've got 16 pages. Man, I'm nowhere. It's okay. I've actually answered a lot of these. So I'm just kind of going down the list here. Like, for example, 5 says about Bacta or Colto, which actually are in the rewrite, so that's whatever. I answered that one. I answered that one. I answered that one. Umbral Magma says, what are your thoughts on the Darksiders series? Darksiders 1 is okay. Net positive. Darksiders 2 was a lot of fun. Darksiders 3 was kind of awful. We actually reviewed Darksiders 3. Was not impressed. Were the Zindi in Enterprise? Yes. Are the Zindi... Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's not what you asked. You asked were the Zindi evil in Enterprise. As a whole species? No, of course not. Especially since it's like 5 separate species. They were stupid. Was there a phrase you have... Is there a phrase you have already deconstruct in your mind? No. Would you want to live in a more pragmatic, utilitarian universe than what we have now? No. But I call Hatham pragmatic. Leaning that way. But I call him an anti-hero? No, he's just a jackass. How would you respond to someone telling you their main goal in life is to survive? That poor person. My heart goes out to them. I hope they can get to something better than survival soon. If I could turn into an animal, what would it be? A white and black tiger? Or a Palas cat? Or a, I forget the name of it, boa constrictor? Does the Imperial... I've already answered that one. I'm sorry, there's so many questions. I need to get somebody to curate the list at some point. Could the Borg beat Diablo? Yep. How would the Star Trek captains deal with a world like Sanctuary? Well, Kirk would like, we've got to help these people. And Picard would be like, not my problem, Prime Directive. And Sisko would be like, oh, this is a messed up place. I'm out. Janeway would be like, hang on. This is what Janeway would be like. And she would decide what to do based on that. And Archer would just be copying Janeway's homework the entire time. Because Janeway is right. I like how you even got the capital R suffix. She's right. Would WoW be a better game with more or less fan service? I don't remember Lunar Ruth. Forgive me. Well, see, okay, sorry. So the question, this is from Tim. Would WoW be better with more or less fan service? I'm going to assume you mean fan service in general, and not just, showing off your midriff, right? WoW probably has a little bit too much fan service in several cases. Now, it's been drifting away from that. It's gotten better about that. But for a while there, and this is even in the expansions I was rather fond of, They liked to be like, hey, you remember this thing? Hey, look, it's this thing from the old Warcraft. And I'm just sitting here like, okay. You could kill Archimond in Warlords. Right? Like they just... I suppose I should mention that there's nothing really wrong with fan service. The problem is fan service is not a quality. Fan service can be good or bad. So, I think I'm actually going to invalidate the question. I don't think any game having more or less fan service is good or bad. It matters whether it's good or bad fan service. So, to use an example of something that I may or may not know something about, the recent Orc Heritage Armor quest chain that was just added to WoW is probably good fan service. Having, Asgalor, what's his damn name? Magtheridon being a random boss in Warlords, bad fan service. And yeah, Mount Hyjal in BC, bad fan service. So, it matters whether they do it well or not. Hyjal I still think is possibly the second or third. It is of the top 3 worst raids in that game. I look forward to piling negatives on its stupid, ugly face. Tim also asks, the worst writing you've seen that was able to be carried by great acting or voice acting? Darth Malik. Darth Malik is not particularly well written. Most people don't even notice how badly written he is because he is carried by his actor. Also, props to the sound editing team. They do a good job with the modulation. I played a Shadow Priest during Hyjal raids, Jay Palmer. Valkorion is another good pick. He was ironically my second pick. Both things from KOTOR. Is Diablo 2 a power fantasy game? No. Is Diablo 2 Remastered better than Warcraft 3 Remastered? I'm pretty sure that if I took this back scratcher right here and said this is a remaster of any game, it would be better than the Warcraft 3 Remastered. Hang on, I've got a lot of weird questions here. Like, would I replace Splatoon 3? Yeah. Mr. Red asked me to remake D1. I actually answered that one on camera, though. No changes! Gigapudding asks, do you think my voice would be good for Matoya? Or should I try for some merchant voices? Both are acceptable, although I think Luné Ruth is currently trying for Matoya. And I think... Did I pen her in for that already? God, actually, I don't remember. I don't remember. I haven't been thinking about it lately. I've got a lot of stuff in my mind. I'm sorry. I'll look at it later. Either way, definitely need some merchants. Scroll down here. So with Quinn and Tor, if you put them in the original trilogy, would you be able to survive working with Vader? Maybe. Quinn, however, is a little bit too much of a butt licker. And Vader actually really doesn't like that. It's a recurring trend in the EU, at least. I don't know how he is in the AU. That Vader does not give... Like, he does not put up with that crap. So, I would say Quinn would not do well there. Mockingbird says, what's a character that is beloved by the community that it comes from, but you can't even stand? Quinlan Voss. Over in Star Wars. I know he's some beloved guy, and I couldn't even begin to tell you why. I just don't like him. I never have. People are going to have an uphill battle to convince me that he should exist in our wars. I could probably come up with others, but that's my first one. Also, Boba Fett might not exist either. We'll get there. Poser Snow asks, what's your preferred Necro build for D2? Mass skeletons. Like, mass skeletons. Preferably skeletal mages, because those have a lot more long-standing power, but just, ooh, yeah. I actually already answered that one, and that one. Jay Palmer says, are Daggerfall or Arena in the BRPG block? God, no. Both of those are actually vetoed games. Not happening. So, Django fought a crate dragon. Okay, that's crazy. And then one of Django's mutated clones fought an adolescent female ranker. And said clone has mutation that grants him superhuman strength. Okay, that's stupid. Did I get your donation from Splatoon 3? Yes. As much as I don't like the Sith Emperor, do I agree with what he said about the Republic? The only way it can serve the galaxy is to fade away. No, this goes back to the burning down the house question earlier. Well, I think Hollywood should be burned down. I don't think the Republic should. Needs a bit of an overhaul. And by that I mean probably a couple of generations of overhauls. Funny thing, that's probably going to happen in our wars. Savacom asks, are you satisfied with how much you've gotten done during the long dark and the short dark? Actually, no. I was really hoping to get RFF2 scripted, and this being sick for a week completely destroyed my plans, so I didn't get nearly as much work done as I was hoping to. Hello, Exo Presley. Shoutouts to Ukraine. How would Shrek deal with the Borg if he was a Star Trek captain? He'd be like, I'm gonna be silly and weird and gross, and then he'd get assimilated, and then he would be dead, functionally. Answered that one, answered that one. I haven't decided yet, Savacom. I need to get FF2 scripted. I've got the outline ready to go. It's just sitting there. I've even directed several of the scenes in my head already. It's why I asked Kay about the 3D panning shot, because that's going to be the opening shot. I can even tell you the first scene. The first scene actually opens on Emperor Mateus. Excuse me, Prince Mateus, who's in Mazidia, who for the first time experiments with this brand new technique he just learned from the Forbidden Tomes of the Mystics in absorbing energy from someone. And he walks up to Ramu, who is one of the Eidolons, just sitting there in Mazidia studying because he lives there. And he kills Ramu by absorbing his life and gains the power from it. It's like, interesting. And that's going to be the first scene in RFF2. How many pages are we down to here? 10! Oh my god. Okay, hang on a second. Hang on. Because there's a lot of questions that we answered as we were going here. Like a lot. Like a lot. Eva says, do you have a favorite class other than the wizard? Yeah, barbarian. Did you add Splatoon 3 to list? Yes! God dang it. No, I think Random wants to stop playing villains at some point. Do I like the Borg Queen in Star Trek? Nope. She was a mistake and shouldn't exist. She is not in our Trek. Mr. Red says, a pre-Cata zone in WoW that would get a positive that isn't Grizzly Hills. Assuming I like Grizzly Hills. Storm Peaks. Also Ice Crown Citadel. Or, excuse me, Ice Crown Glacier. Not sure other than that, but definitely those two. Yeah, I don't think Savacom should play Mateus. Oh, you want to play Furion's lover, Random. That's interesting. Okay, hang on. Someone asked a question. Random asked a question. 1,000 Needles? That's funny. I listed 1,000 Needles as one of my least favorite zones. Pre-Cata. It just says so much about how different we are in terms of what we value, isn't it? So Random says, how do you work on an outline for the rewrite? So I don't actually know how to answer that question. I guess once... So... Okay, let's use visual metaphors. I've got a box, okay? I've just got this tray here. And bit by bit, I add stuff into the tray. I've got scenes, I've got ideas, I've got characters, I've got themes, right? And I just add pieces of the story, but none of it, it's all in a random jumble. Then I sit back, and I'm like, okay, I need to sequence this. Sequencing has to take into account things like pacing, as well as logic. Like, there needs to be a logical thread between events. So, let's go ahead and start over here. Because I need to start at this point, timeline-wise. When we do this thing, this is going to lead to here. That doesn't work. Pause, think it through, puzzle it through. Let's move this scene over here instead. There we go. Then we have a breather section. Then we're going to go over here, and you get the overall idea. That's how I outline. I actually answered this question. Does Twitch not like mobile? Correct. Twitch. What's really weird is Twitch mobile is one of the better features when you're just listening. But as far as like several other features of Twitch, it's just like, no, screw you. You got to get on a PC. And it's like, but okay. Well, it's funny you say that, Savicom. So every week, obviously, I go to visit my family. And that is an hour drive both ways. So those 2 hours, I almost always allocate towards outlining or writing in general. Obviously, I can't script in the car. But what I will do is I've got the microphone on my headphones right here, see? And I, of course, have it plugged into my phone. So I fire up whatever it's called. I don't actually remember what it's called right now, but it's a recording app. And I just hit record and I talk it out so that I don't lose it. And that's how I take notes while I'm driving in order to be able to do that. No, usually I talk to her in person, Savicom. But she has been driving while I've done that, for example. Let's see here. So, I get a final say in an MMO's class design. Designers have come to 2 possible options. Option 1. It's extremely fun now, but it's so complicated that it's guaranteed that over the years it'll be impossible to maintain and balance. Or option 2. It's fun, but very, very basic. However, under the hood, it's great for the designers, and over time they can add to it, balance it, and change it. I will take option 2 10 times out of 10. Although that does run the obvious risk of running into players not being engaged or hooked immediately, it will absolutely lead to a better game overall, and let's be clear, that's what I care about more. Classic Game Lover, speaking of D3, says, I was thinking this game has a lot of similarities to Breath of the Wild. I feel like we talked about that today. In that where its story shines is more in the background elements, like the texture work and what the player can see, as opposed to what's written in the main narrative and main plot. Agreed, absolutely. That's also true for most games, if we're being honest. Most games do not sell themselves on their plot. I've talked about this. Would I prefer that... Oh, I actually already answered that one. I've already answered that one, too. I can think of one off of the top of my head that has a good plot. Well, excuse me, I'm saying that wrong. I'm thinking of one game off the top of my head that focuses on plot and also happens to have a good plot. I can think of several games that focus on plot and have a bad plot. But let's not get into that. Tim says, what's a game I would choose to bluntly showcase what I mean by atmosphere? Metroid. Metroid Dread qualifies. Metroid Prime qualifies. Final Fantasy Tactics, actually, Evo. Although Tactics Ogre might qualify. Both of them have the same problem. Both of them fall apart in the last act. Answer that question. Answer that question. Answer that question. I actually answered a lot of these questions, which is great. Push through the queue. Witcher 2. You know what? I'll agree that Witcher 2 focuses on the plot. I'll agree with that. I'll give you that one. It actually fails at several other aspects of story, and its gameplay is total garbage. But it does have a focus on plot, and that plot is good. I actually answered a lot of these. Tim asks, can demons love in the Diablo setting? By all accounts, no. They actively lack the ability to love, and I don't just mean romantically. Because obviously Lilith is able to have sex with Inarius, but by every account we've had, including the books in D3, this does not include D4, Lilith had no love whatsoever for Inarius. She was just using him in order to further their own goals, because she's a demon, that's what they do. So they lack the ability to have that kind of fondness. Can they care? Yeah, they can care about stuff. Things that are... I mean, anybody can care. A dog can care. Actually, yes, Sabacon. She's a succubus. They're gonna be crappy at sex. They don't need to be good at sex. They just walk up and go, hey, I'm super sexy. And you're like, oh my god, I can't wait to have sex with you. And then they're like, bam! Surprise, sucker! And then they just, jam a bunch of metal into your bloodstream so that Magneto can kill you later. Justin said, oh, actually, I answered that one. Yeah, I've answered so many of these, which is great. I do try to answer some of the questions as they come. I think that's like a quick question that I could just answer off the top of my head. I usually try to answer as they come in. Sorry, Huthor. Oh, I don't want... How bad is it, Dr. Winter? Can angels love? Not enough evidence, I would say. What MMO has linear storytelling for its main quest has the best chance of creating a good main quest with multiple endings? FF14. It's the easiest and best answer by far. Having said that, we actually have several runner-ups, including STO and Guild Wars 2. They're not going to, of course. Yeah, that's what I was... Yeah, but that's... Infatuation isn't love. And again, love doesn't necessarily mean romantic. So, I'm not sure. Grey Widow says, this act made me think about Pandemonium Fortress. Weirdly enough, Halbu and Jamela are among my favorite NPCs in Diablo 2 because we know literally nothing about them, leaving so much room for interpretation and headcanon. What's your headcanon for them? So, I actually kind of used my headcanon for them in the Diablo rewrite. I imagine nobody noticed this, but when the Angels, Imperius specifically, were building Pandemonium Fortress in our Diablo, they recruited a bunch of humans to be their allies, to be their local recruits and converts. And so my thought was always, where that came from, was that Jamela and Halbu were humans who have been here probably for a really long time in a servitor fashion. Doing maintenance work, for lack of a better way to put it. Angelic puppetry, if you will. Would I go against everything I was taught for an infatuation? No. I mean, I've been a teenager. I remember how stupid we can be as teenagers, but no. And I've done some stupid stuff. I've never taken my ACTs. I'm gonna let you guess why that's related to this topic of conversation. I was busy. Alright, when do I think WoW should be replaced? Pretty sure we did that already. I don't remember what ACT stands for. Anybody in chat know off the top of their head? I mean, Inarius wanted to rule on high as a god. Lilith wanted to have her own new private domain in order to rule on high as a god. I don't think either of them really gave a damn about each other. Like, I have seen no evidence that either of them ever actually cared about each other. I don't remember if... Dr. Witcher, did I answer your Robin question? I remember your Robin question. American college testing. Thank you, Eternus. What's the idea, Wolf Alex, if you don't mind sharing? Because Mega Man is one of the few things I have penned in for rewrites. Like, I'm doing a Mega Man rewrite. Okay, I'll just read the question out loud. At what point does common knowledge of canon become more true than canon? Take DC's Robin. Most people, I'd argue, would count 3, Grayson, Todd, and Drake. There are, of course, more, but how many people know all of the Robins? How many people consider all of them equally important to the overall product? Hang on. Okay, Huthor's dead. Yeah, I thought we talked about this, because we had a whole discussion about headcanon and canon, and how Huthor's wrong about it. Alright, hang on. There's just... can someone clean this up, please? It's okay. Huthor doesn't believe in continuity either, so he's fine now because I didn't shoot him a few seconds ago. This is an interesting question. I'm about to lose some viewers and possibly some supporters. Hey, Huthor, what's going on? So Dr. Winter asks, did your enjoyment of ruminations cease, or was it never really there? I asked because I discovered you due to your Dragon Age Origins room, and you seem to enjoy talking about it. So, ruminations were always a compromise. They were always me trying to do something I want to do and failing at it, because I couldn't actually do what I wanted to do. I was one random dude with a laptop webcam and a headset mic, and that's it. Over time, I have actually gotten more resources, and more access, and more viewers, and more tech, and more gear, and more experience. But even now, I couldn't do what I actually wanted to do with the rumination concept, the video essay, if you will. So, the answer to that is, functionally, no. I never really had any enjoyment of the ruminations. Talking about something I like to talk about is something I like to talk about. And that is what the ruminations are at their core. They were never reviews. They were never really in-depth analyses. It was just me chatting about the stuff that I thought was worth chatting about. A very loose, surface-level kind of analysis thing. So, it's a running joke, Eternus, as you can see in chat. Interesting blow of Alex. I'll have to keep that in mind. And then steal the idea horribly. Do I enjoy streaminations? I do enjoy streaminations more. I still wish I could do better, but I can't, so I won't. I will admit, and I don't want to start anything with this, but I kind of wish I hadn't committed to the streaminations. They work great, don't mistake me. It's just, I kind of wish we could spend that time on... I could spend that time on something else. Fringe Philosopher asks something I'm actually going to leave in the queue. No, actually, I did answer that. Never mind. Tim says, which version of the Batman can do good enough in Diablo 3 to be significant, but not too impactful to overshadow the platter character? None of them. Bats would be stomped in D3. As we've talked about many times, while Batman certainly has the mentality, drive, and, you know, just all the will and all that, the fact is, without his support network, he is nothing. And he's not going to have that support network in D3. And D3 regularly involves a lot of people who do a lot of things to a lot of people. Like, I'm sorry, Batman would probably be corrupted by the demons very quickly in D3. Because he is exactly the kind of person they tend to gravitate towards. What would be the ideal way of doing it? Okay. Okay. Give me a sec, because we're getting very close to being caught up at the queue, and then I'll answer that. In fact, could you add that to the queue, Eternus? Just put it to the end. Tim asks, ugliest cosmetic you choose to wear? My actual real gear. Yeah, the Kim suit in the WoW World. Oh god, do you remember when we wore that stupid bikini for the WoW Lore run? I hated that suit. I mean, I wasn't a fan. I was not a fan, Luthor. Okay. So let's say that Microsoft now owns Blizzard. Microsoft has decided to give Blizzard one of their franchises to make a new game of. Which franchise do you pick? Which is the best franchise to pick, and which is the worst? I thought I did, Dr. Winter. I hope I did, because I went by it earlier. It's been deleted now. Oh god, the Murloc Hunter suit in Kata. Ugh. See, the thing is, Microsoft has a lot of franchises under their umbrella, technically, at this point. Okay, so I can't decide if this would be the worst or the best, but it's definitely one of them. Tyranny. Which, a game I desperately want a good sequel to someday. I think that Blizzard could either do a wonderful take on the concept and precepts of tyranny and really flesh it out, because Blizzard usually does more of the side stuff, backstory, world building pretty well, and, you know, or they would completely fail at it miserably and not manage to get across the tone and the vibe of it. So, like I said, there's a lot to polish there. Exactly, you get it, Bregman. There's a lot to polish about tyranny, and Blizzard, when they do what Blizzard does best, might be able to really turn that into just something awesome. Or they're failed miserably, one of the two. So I think that's actually going to be my answer for both. Tim also asked, how much do I hate the game that you... Hang on. How much do you hate the game you hate the most that you've reviewed? I have a list right here of the games I've reviewed. Let's just sort by golden number. So of these, Secret of the Stars is not a game I hate the worst, even though it is the worst game I've ever covered. And that's because I can't hate it. We had too much of a good time on it. It's completely tainted by the good memories of that stream. That would be nice, Jay Palmer. Honestly, I think it's X7. Even though Devil May Cry 2 and Secret of the Stars are worse games, and I stand by that, Mega Man X7 can go directly to hell. I hate everything they did with a franchise that is still one of my favorite franchises. Mega Man is penned in for rewrite status for a goddamn reason, you know? So, that would be my answer to that. And yes, I do think my review of that was sufficient in expressing my thoughts and feelings on the matter. When do I think Blizzard fell in love with FOMO? Right about when Activision got involved. The timeline is pretty close. Non-Paradox game that's not an MMO that has changed the most from its release version after all its free updates. Oh, that's easy. No Man's Sky. Or No Man's Ski, if you prefer. Answer that one. So Evo asks a wonderful question, but she's not here. No! She's not here. She's left me. That's okay. I don't blame her. Wait, she's still here! I can answer her question. You did miss the golden number voice of authority. What do you think it is before I tell you? Evo asks a very valid rewrite question. How many changes have to be made for the work to no longer be meaningfully connected to the original? So, here's the thing. And this is a really weird direction to go with this. But I think this is one of those you know it when you see it things. Setting a hard definition or outline for this kind of concept, I don't think that works. I don't think it's going to apply. It's a bit of a ship of Theseus thing, which I hate to reference that because it's a little overused, but I might have that scene below of Alex. Might change it. I've heard a good voice actor do a good job with that scene. Like, that's happened. I feel like if you look at something and it is sufficiently violently changed from the original, you're going to be like, well, that's not the original anymore. And you're going to know that just from looking at it. But, like, this was literally brought up earlier today. Andor, the show, the Star Wars show, is one of the least Star Wars things that we've seen in probably a couple of decades. No sequel trilogy jokes, please. And yet, it is still very definitively Star Wars, despite being so detached, so disconnected from the core concepts of Star Wars. And I've seen this for several long-standing franchises as well. So, it's really hard to... It's really hard to define that. So, do I think that there is such a thing as changing, Star Trek or FF1 or whatever sufficiently that it will no longer be meaningfully connected to the original? Yes. But for example, to use an actual practical example of this, our Diablo, in my opinion, is still clearly connected to Diablo, right? It is still feels like a Diablo game. It's still got the overall vibe, the tone, the atmosphere. It's got the central pillar, which is the angels versus the demons. And it's got the burning hells and the high heavens and all the heroes in the middle who are trying to just make do with what they can, etc. Now, that's just me, but I do think that that's true. And you're probably thinking, why are you using our Diablo as an example? Well, if you've been paying attention over the last week, I have changed the Diablo lore so fundamentally in our Diablo. I literally rewrote the fabric of reality. I completely changed the history top to bottom. Threw the existing canon and timeline completely out the window. I condensed 25 years of story into a month. But I still think I didn't change too much. Does that make sense? I'm probably explaining this very badly here. This is one of the reasons I push back so hard when so many people say, oh, you can't do that when it comes to the rewrite project. Yes, I can! I totally freaking can! The catch is to make it work, right? The catch is to actually get it working and to actually make Star Wars without the Force, to make Star Trek without holodecks, to make Harry Potter without the houses. Doable. How long did the Diablo rewrite take from concept to completion? Actually, a very short period of time. The overall production time was about 3 months. Really proud of that, by the way. I wish I had more time to work on RFF1. I know, right, Huthor? Huthor, have you heard me? Yeah, it doesn't matter, yeah, FF1, we're already in casting. I'm about halfway through designing most of the backgrounds. I'm hoping Evo will help me with polishing some of those backgrounds, adding some doodads to them. Then what is the central pillar? Well, that's a good question, Mike Romano. But again, I feel like it's the wrong question because it presumes that Star Trek can only be Star Trek if there's one thing right in the middle. And I don't agree with that. This is going to sound a little more philosophical. Oh, absolutely, Blue Alex. That is the problem, and that's something I've gotten over, if that makes any sense. It's like, okay, people are going to hate it. Moving on. No, I didn't, Mike Romano. I said there was like 5 or 6 things. God, Mike Romano doesn't listen to me. So, yeah, it's a confluence of things. This, I don't want to get physicsy, right? This literal physical backstructure that I'm using right here is not one thing. There's a multitude of electrons and neurons and protons which are floating in a cloud right here. And the cloud doesn't have a definitive edge. We in human beings like to think about things being solid or clearly defined, but it doesn't actually work that way. Instead, what happens is the closer you are to the middle, the closer you are to the center, the more defined it is, and the further out, the less. Everything's a gradient to some extent or another. So, core Star Trek is not one linear, one-dimensional line which defines everything. It's a degree of things. It's a cloud of things that has some things that are more central to it and some things that are less central to it in the middle, right? And that's Star Trek. So, like, even Chrono Trigger, I know this is a weird example, Chrono Trigger, which has one of the most defined central pillars I've ever seen in fiction, Lavos, still has other elements to it, right? See you around, Evo. Get some good rest. Why the aggressive timeline? Because it worked well. Because it was the best story. Some people don't know this about me. I have only one objective when it comes to writing. I want to write the best story possible. This is actually one of the biggest ways Huthor and I disagree, and probably why he hasn't actually gotten involved in the Star Wars rewrite project, is because I don't care about allegory or themes or telling a thing. Like you were asking earlier, Huthor, about the dude who did the hero's journey. I don't care. I don't care about that kind of vague, ephemeral stuff. I care about a story. I care about writing the best story possible. That's really the only objective I have walking into it. Eternus asks, theme is a part of story. Absolutely. But, okay, theme's the wrong word. I don't care about message. I'm not trying to write a story that says, you know, corporations are bad. FF7. I'm not trying to write a story that says fascism is bad. Star Wars. I'm not trying to tell a story that says, you know, prejudice is bad. Star Trek. That's not what I'm after. I'm after writing the best possible story. That's it. That's all. It's actually funny because I have had people read stuff into my works, my written works that's absolutely not there. Because most people assume there's an allegory, because most people assume there's a message. Anyways, so have I heard of Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts? Actually, I have. See, that's why we're on total opposites on that, Uthor. I have heard of Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts. I think that's the one I've actually got on my list. Let me double check that, because I've got a I'd like to play it someday list. Yeah, it's right there, Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts. So, yes, I have. It looks cool. Burger recipe. Okay. So let's go with something really basic. We've got the patty. We're not going to put anything in it, and you're not going to season it too much because most of it's going to come out in the cooking. You don't want to get a little bit of salt. You want to get a little bit of pepper. Oh, of course I don't blow up, Alex. It's just funny to me. Okay, get that nice and ready to go. I prefer grilling, obviously. I don't have access to grill, so I bake my burgers. I put them in a tray, let them bake for a bit, flip, let them go for a bit, and then we have to add our fixings. So we want a pretzel bun. We're going to go ahead and cook our pretzel bun on the skillet. Get a little bit of butter, scooch it around, let it cook for a little bit, get it out. We want something nice and spicy for the top bun. It always has to be the top bun, so it hits your mouth just right. We're going to go ahead and use some spicy mustard there. On the bottom bun, we're going to go ahead and put, let's go ahead and put 2 slices of Clausen pickles. Nice, big, thick slices of tomatoes. Then we're going to go ahead and put the bun there. On top of the bun, right out of the oven, we need to go ahead and put the slice of cheese or grated cheese. I prefer Swiss. Then we do some shredded lettuce. There's your burger. Okay. Yura asks, what were your first impressions when first playing WoW? It doesn't actually matter to me, Ross. Both are good. First impressions when first playing WoW. So I had 3 thoughts in no particular order, and I don't remember which one was first, which is why I say it that way. First, this is going to completely change the industry. Second, we need to immediately quit making our MMO. And third, oh my god, I can't wait to play more of this. It was rough. It was really rough, because this was the alpha. But... And hey, I was right on all 3 points. Just realized that. Eterna says, what do you think would be your ideal... Okay, so this is the other question. Let me answer Random's question first, because he didn't put it in the queue. Shame on you, Random. No cheese maker for you. Since you've experienced both, which is harder and which would you rather have? Too little of a cast and a lot of roles, or too little roles and a lot of cast? You know, that's a fascinating question. Because, personally, I would like to say that too small of a cast with too large of a cast with too few roles is worse. I feel legitimately bad about the casting of RFF1. I do, to this very moment. I wish I could have cast like 3 or so people to several lines and just have different versions of it or something, you know? That's not feasible, I'm not doing that. But I feel really bad because I had so many good people auditioning, and I already lament the version of RFF1 we will not get. But I remember working on the FF9 theater. Actually, I remember working on the Paper Mario 2 theater, where I had a cast of like 5 people who were willing to do one really small role each. That sucked. So, no. The worst case, by far, was the small cast. There's a reason the FF9 theater almost didn't happen. And there's a reason I almost put it down. You remember that? Like, I walked away from the FF9 theater for like a year. So, no, that's worse by a huge margin. Thank you, Eternus. Oh, I'm still being blocked. Well, Eternus asked one last question. What do you think would be your ideal way of letting your audience know your opinions on a show or a movie? So, if we're talking true, fantastical, you know, I have a holodeck kind of a thing. Oh my god. Ah! Okay, I wasn't ready for this. It's just a sudden bomb going on here. Hang on. Hang on. Let's do this in reverse order. Thank you, Voice of Authority, very much. Always. I will put that towards Pentiment, Planescape Torment, Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous. Thank you, James Hogan. Always. If you want to put that towards up to 3 things, please let me know. Thank you. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm not ready. Thank you, Eternus. I'm going to bow anyways. Thank you, Eternus. If you want to put that towards up to 3 things, please let me know. Sure. Dr. Winter, why not? We might as well end this on a classy note. Ultimate Admiral Dreadnought. Well, yeah, okay. That is how that works. But add that to the list. And thank you, Beaver McDeaver, very much. Always and ever. I do appreciate it muchly. Thank you. And if you want to put that towards up to 3 things, please let me know. You can throw it all at Ragnarok. Absolutely, James Hogan. You do not have to duplicate it. That's up to you, Beaver McDeaver. Whatever you want to put it towards. Within reason, there's actually... Okay, I shouldn't say that. There's actually a lot of limitations on what you can put it towards. But you can put it towards stuff. And I could be like, yes, done. For example, Dream Whisperer just put that towards Lower Decks. Or no, not God of War. Sorry, StarCraft. And Dishonored 2. And, well, we do have a concept called Dealer's Choice. Which is so called for a reason. You got it. And thank you, Dream Whisperer. Always endeavor. I will put that towards Lower Decks, StarCraft, and Dishonored 2. So, let's talk true holodeck situation. I have the ability to do a proper rumination, what I would call a rumination. Not some kind of... Not some stupid, you know, idiot, bald moron talking into a webcam because in his bedroom. Because it's all I got, right? No. So ideally what I would want to do is I would want to get a lot of the specific story in my head and ready to go. And I'd wear a full uniform. I'd be wearing the black shirt, of course, with the white tie because it's a rumination. And I wouldn't have the gloves on. Instead, I'd have the ring, which is right here. I'd also have long hair because, you know, at this point, you know, I would have... The circumstances would exist for me to have long hair. So I've got the long hair. And I would actually go on site to somewhere specific, some place where it's relevant to the movie or to the show in question. And that's where I'd actually really like to discuss it. Like, let me use a direct example because I've actually thought about this before. Let's say I'm discussing Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. So, I'm on the bridge of the Enterprise. The one specifically from the second movie. Obviously, that's not possible, but we're in infinite land here. So, whatever, I got a holodeck. So, I'm walking around, and the idea is I would be walking around, and I would decide where I am on the bridge relative to which part of the movie I was discussing. Like over by Spock's station when discussing what happens with him, moving over to Uhura's, going down to the captain's chair to discuss some of the confrontation between Khan. And ideally, I would be able to do a thing, almost documentary style, where I could have the camera pan past me a little bit and face the view screen, specifically. And then you would actually see a scene, a relevant scene, or 2 or 3 on the view screen. And, for example, I'm looking at the view screen, and I'm like, all right, pause. And the movie playback stops, and I could walk up to it like I'm a weather forecaster, right? And I'd be like, all right, so are you seeing his expression here? I can actually picture the scene I'm discussing right now. You can see his expression, and you can see there's just this slump visible in him. And there's this also bloody stain that's going to be on his clothing for the entire remainder of the movie as a literal physical reminder of the scars that Khan has left upon him. Play. And then move forward a little bit, right? Stuff like that. And that's how I would do it. I would actually walk around the holodeck, let's call it what it is, and just use the visuals of the set in order to physically present this, present the ideas and present the visuals and present the scenes. Of course, I would also be able to use my full body language, because you'd be seeing more than just, my chest up, right? Because I'd actually be walking around in full uniform. So, that would be awesome. It will never happen. And the final question of the night, and then I'm going to chop off, because I was supposed to chop off 20 minutes ago. How would I rank each main cast doctor from Star Trek? So we know that Beverly Crusher is the best at being super sexy. But as a character, she's not actually that great. That's kind of the idea of Wolf Alex. It's effectively a movie lore run. The compromise I've thought of is to do a lore run of the movie, to have the movie like up here, or actually probably up here, right? And to have it playing, and I'd have the controls, and I could pause it, like, did you see that? Did you catch that? Let's discuss this. This is going to tie into this later thing. Remember this for later. Play. And then let it play up again and just do it alongside. But of course, that's completely impossible because copy wrong is what it is. Ideally, that would be live too. But anyways, it would have been great for discussing the individual little details of My Little Pony. Oh my god. Because there's so many animation details and so many nuances of performance in that one. Anyways, yeah, so as much as I would love to say that Beverly Crusher is the best doctor, I'm not a good liar. She is incredibly sexy. But unfortunately, that's actually kind of all she has going for her. So she's probably actually the worst. That's why I'm starting with her. She's at the very bottom of the main cast doctors. Immediately above her, I would honestly probably put Pulaski if we're counting her. But let's assume we're not counting her. So let's just move up to the next one. I'm going to get some hackles for this, but Bashir. Hang on, before you hate me. I should probably mention that Bashir's character, first of all, takes way too long to actually get there. And second of all, is mostly good for how he works with other people. Bashir and O'Brien is one of the best, if not the best, friendships in all of Star Trek. Bashir and Garak is a fantastic dynamic that they do wonderful stuff with. But Bashir by himself, even after he starts becoming a character, I would argue that Bashir only actually has one good episode all to himself. I'm not going to say which one it is, you can probably guess. Maybe two, if you want to stretch it. So, immediately above Bashir, we actually don't have that many left at this point, but I would go ahead and say Phlox. Now, I'm judging this based on the character in a vacuum, if it's not obvious, because I just mentioned that about Bashir. That's important, because if we count Bashir's connections to other characters, then Bashir crushes Phlox. But Phlox is a surprisingly engaging character. Most people remember Phlox badly because of one very terrible ending to one mediocre episode. And I don't blame them for that. But Phlox is a character pretty much in every other thing that he's in, is a far more interesting and far more alien creature, and they do some good stuff with him, and the actor's fantastic. He also just shines in Season 4, but then again, they all do. However, Phlox doesn't have the character dynamics with other characters that Bashir does. That's why Bashir would take it if we count that. Either way, this leaves only two at the top, and we know that Dr. McCoy is number 2. By virtue of being one of the big 3 in TOS, he has the great fortune of being one of the only characters that got any character to him. How many of you actually remember that Dr. McCoy was actually a hell of a ladies' man in TOS? More than Kirk. Kirk has the rep in popular consciousness, but in terms of actual interactions, McCoy was the one who was always hitting on and successfully getting with the women. The women, that's a weird way to put that, but you know what I mean. Literally more than Kirk. Not actually a joke. But that's not why I'm pointing that out. I'm just pointing out because it's funny to me. But McCoy's a great character. He's got that home doctory thing, but he's brilliant. He knows what he's doing. And that's a precision of character that's rarely gotten across. He's completely casual about things, and in all ways presents himself as if he's the kind of person who would heal your leg by slapping a stick to it and saying you're good. But no, he's really good at what he does. He is top of his line. He is very advanced and knows his medical science off the top of his freaking head. He is very good at being a doctor, and he uses that as part of his character, which is obviously, part of why he's so high up for me. Yeah, him in Star Trek 4, he shined in the hospital scene. Because the other thing about him is you can tell that he is a doctor because he wants to be. And that's an important distinction. Not everyone becomes a doctor because they want to go out and help people. Frankly, Bashir didn't do that. Bashir had a complicated history, but Bashir, it wasn't really a I want to help people kind of a guy. A little more mathy, a little more challenging kind of a person. And some other stuff. Beverly might have if she had character, I agree, but she didn't. Pulaski did, but Pulaski was literally just aping McCoy. Even the character I put above McCoy isn't quite that same. No, McCoy wants to help the individual person. My God, man. Drilling holes in his head is not going to solve this problem. Like, there's a sincerity to the way he says that, right? But, of course, the one at the very top. The Doctor. Now, I admit I am absolutely biased here, because the actor that plays the Doctor, whose name I suddenly can't think of, Robert Picardo, is amazeballs. Legitimately one of my favorite Trek actors of all time, like across everything. Robert Picardo is fantastic. The Doctor it takes a tremendous amount of charisma to manage a character who is as arrogant as the Doctor is and not make him irritating. The Doctor, we're going to have to figure out, we've had to do some stretching because everybody involved in the Trek rewrite wants the Doctor to exist, but we don't have holographic characters. We don't have holoforms. So we're going to rewrite some of the tech just to make sure the Doctor exists, because he is that worthwhile to keep in the story. Because he's a great character and thematically and all that fun stuff. So, the Doctor is not what you'd call traditionally arrogant. He's not like, I'm trying to think of a good example of this. He's not like real-life doctors, who just have that natural exuding arrogance, like they walk around with a god complex, right? You've probably met at least one doctor in your life who is exactly as I'm describing. I've met hundreds because of the medical side of my family. The House is a great fictional. House just knows that he's better. He's so much better than you. He's so much smarter than you, and he can completely walk around this situation constantly. The Doctor has a different kind of arrogance. He has defensive arrogance. He is someone who actually feels like he should be this great, amazing person, but he's not. And he gets this constant feedback for like 3 seasons of everyone treating it, just slowly growing to treat him like a person, instead of, I agree with that, Blue Alex, instead of treating him, it's slowly growing to treat him as a person instead of treating him like a phone, right? And he's pushing back at that constantly. And so and almost every scene where he's trying to talk himself up is specifically because he feels so down. Because he is so ground down by virtue of what he is. And that's the other thing. I've talked 5 times today about how we can change whatever hell we want to in a rewrite, as long as we do it for good reason and purpose. But the biggest reason we're not just going to grab Zimmerman and drop him onto Voyager is because the nature of what the Doctor is a very important part of his character. It is it's Spock being a hybrid. We decided to allow hybrids across all of Star Trek because Spock justified it, because it's so integral to his character. So we need the Doctor to be different. We need the Doctor to be some kind of thing that will then become a part of... I actually have an idea already. I've probably told it to some of you. Yeah, also Zimmerman isn't a doctor. We could change that, of course. That's easy. That's an easy fix. But the big idea I have is, hear me out for a second. So imagine that there's this droid body. And I call it a droid on purpose. It doesn't look human. It doesn't look humanoid. It doesn't look like Data. they're nowhere near Data, right? This is a robot. But its hands and its arms and Gingaman are very precise, right? They can do extraordinarily precise, like molecular level incisions and operations. Kind of like the Doctor himself can do. That's the whole thing. Most of the tech, most of the engineering of this robot went into these hands. They are very, very well designed. The rest of him is crude and can barely walk and just has all sorts of issues. But you get the idea, right? And so the Doctor is actually the program that runs that robot. He's not in the robot. He controls it via remote. The Doctor is a backup program that exists within the data, within the computer, specifically within the medical computer, which, because I'm not a moron, is on a different network from the rest of the computers on the ship. So, yeah, actually, yeah, I didn't even think about that, Sean, but you're right. Kind of like Edie. Edie's the ship running the bot. Oh my god, stop giving me money. So, at this point, he is functionally just a tool, just like the hologram would be. So we have, you know, this extremely inhuman-looking bot. There's none of the warmth or humanization or what do you call it? There's a term for that. What do you call it when we add human elements to something that isn't human, like a cat or a dog or a stuffed animal or a ship? There's a term for that, and I can't think of it. Anthropomorphism. That's it. There's nothing to anthropomorphize. It's this freaking bot with its insides exposed. Like, you can see the gears and the circuits. That it's just... Right? And yet, the actual Doctor, the entity, the thing that can grow through droid effect into sentience and sapience that's locked in that poor computer. Yeah, exactly, Huthor. That's something that can grow into being a person. And so then we have something fundamental to his existence that can still, you know, allow him to have that aspect of his character. Now, none of this is penned in. None of this is chiseled into stone or whatever. This is just my biggest idea for how to deal with the Doctor right now. But that's the direction I'm leaning at the moment. Now, thank you, Gingaman, very much. Always appreciate. Give me a second. So you... Gingaman for... Deus Ex Human Revolution. Yeah, Metroid Block actually got funded. Haven't decided about Data yet. Data's... Let me come back to Data. But, and yeah, Gingaman, you are also absolutely right. Part of the reason the Doctor is the way he is because of Zimmerman. Absolutely. It's also worth noting that because of what we know with the other model ones, or whatever they're called, that the only reason the Doctor had the chance to grow and become a person was because he had the unique circumstance of being there in Voyager and having a family and a crew and interaction. He had the circumstances for droid effect, put very, very simply. Most of the other Doctors probably never even got that. Rejecting 7? No, wait. I've got it, Lunaris. We'll keep 7, but instead of a catsuit, bikini. Thank you very, very much, Tazara. Always and ever appreciate it. If you know what you want to put that towards, please do let me know. Thank you. Thank you. Vulcan robes. Hey, Vulcan robes look awesome. I use Tabletop Simulator every Thursday when I play D&D, Beaver McDeaver. Are we keeping Locutus? I haven't thought about it. That's a little bit far ahead for me. We're probably keeping 7, though, because 7's awesome. I should write that down. Data. There's a common problem in fiction. No, Huthor! There's a common problem in fiction where... I'm trying to think how to phrase this. We just sort of accept that one brilliant person can do something and no one can replicate it. It's a very common trope in fiction that has no validity in real life, really. I can use another example right off the top of my head. Mega Man. We all just accept that Rock and X and Zero are just better than every other android that's been made, or Reploid that's been made, over literal centuries, because they were made by geniuses. Tony Stark, perfect example, Sean, thank you. Tony Stark is just a super genius, so we just accept that no one can ever do anything. And yeah, exactly. Data is a perfect example of this. We all just accept that Data is just, or excuse me, Soong is just that much of a genius, who is just capable of outclassing every other major power in the galaxy, or at the very least in the Alpha and Beta quadrants. Just smashing everyone else. Other people haven't even gotten close to Data. And if you pay attention across the show's run up to the conclusion of Voyager, no one else ever gets close to Data. We see several other robot races, we see several other holographic races. Nobody ever manages the android thing. So Data is kind of a, for me, I do have an idea. It's not a great idea, but it is an idea. What I was thinking of when it comes to Data is maybe Data is a cheat. Maybe Soong got really just tired of failure after failure after failure of making bots. Of making bare bones bots of the level of general intelligence we have in real life. That is to say, not intelligence at all. So he cheated. And he uses a person. And Data is, well, it's RoboCop, right? To put it bluntly. I mean, fiction has done this plenty of times. Data is a person who then soon goes in and tries to ship of Theseus remove bits and pieces over time, right? To try and make him more of a robot, more of an android. And I would also like the idea if Soong tried to was planning to present this as, hey, look, I totally did it. And then, something happened. But yeah, you get the idea. And that's Data. And that's how he manages to get across actual AI. It's not an AI. It's used to be a person. Yeah, Borg full conversion, which, ironically, the Borg could also do. The Borg are really high tier in our Trek. I'm not going to lie about that. They could probably make an android if they have a reason to. So that's my current thought. Again, none of that's penned in. None of that's penned in. But Huthor says, aren't you losing out of Data wanting to become fully human from never starting out that way? I like how in your very question, you're destroying your own point. Probably, yeah, Jay Palmer. Because the very fact that he is so fundamentally not human, or whatever species he happened to have been, is kind of the point, isn't it? Because he will forever be enslaved to this circuitry and this body in order to even keep him alive. We could add little bits and details about the kind of maintenance he has to undergo, or the things he has to do in order to function, and about the kind of biases he would probably face by virtue of being a cyborg. There's all sorts of directions we could go with this, and his search to figure out not just being human, but instead, who is he? What is he? Is absolutely a thing we could play with in that. Now, the only thing I don't like about it is it's repeating the same damn story idea for characters that Trek uses all the time. The hybrid. Best of both worlds. They did this with Spock. And Spock, it worked with Spock, and then they kept repeating it over and over and over. The amount of characters in Star Trek that are, to 1 foot into 2 worlds is a little bit, they do it too much. So that's the only thing I don't like about that. I think we can make it work. Yeah, Troy, B'Elanna, Worf, also Paul over in Enterprise while we're on the subject. Arguably Cisco, I don't want to get into that one. Definitely Kira. I think they did a good job with Kira, consequently. Kira was definitely torn between 2 worlds. So that's the only thing I don't like about that idea. But either way, Data will definitely throw people out windows. Then he'll talk about tears and rain. It's a whole thing. It's going to be a whole thing. But again, whether that's a terrible idea or not, and remember, don't care about allegory. That's something that's penned in. That's so far in the future. But one way or another, Data has to be solved, because you can't just have Data be an android that isn't replicated. That is another option, by the way. We could say that Data was the first android. First of many. We could even still have the general gist of Measure of a Man if Data is going to bat for the android species that currently exists, which do not legally have rights under the current vaguely defined situation. You get the idea, right? So there are opportunities, there's possibilities. We need to hammer it out. We need to work on it when we get there. Ugh. Yeah, it changes Measure of a Man quite a bit. What if he was an incarcerated person? Originally? That's a good question. Although, killing someone who's incarcerated... I don't see why that's a bad thing, Huthor. If anything, that sounds more interesting to me. You know, I know I spent like 5 minutes describing the one idea and then 5 seconds describing the other, but I think I like the 5 seconds idea better. Just quickly. There's a whole bunch of androids. Okay, we got to solve this problem. Because what if... So Savacom says we can't enslave people. This is the Federation. And Lord knows, my Federation is absolutely not going to be the fascist group that it tends to be in actual canon Trek. No. So how the hell could they have a slave race? I think the only way that could actually work is if it was ignorance. If most people are legitimately not aware of the fact that these are people, right? And it would also have to be recent. Very recent. Like, maybe androids have only started mass production, like, within the last year. Maybe 2, maybe 3. But you get the idea, right? It's a recent introduction into the culture of the Federation. And as people interact with them, droid effect starts to take effect, and they start to realize, hold on, this construction bot, this cleaning bot, is starting to ask me some interesting questions. I need an adult. And that could be the impetus for what Measure a Man even happens. Is because Data, the prototype, decides to legally sue for rights of sentience. Suing the Federation Council, essentially. I did, but I don't remember where, Eternus. I'd have to figure it out. I'm sorry, I don't even know where that would be. It's okay, Huthor. We've given up on it already. You convinced me, Huthor. No, you didn't. I'm not going to lie to you. What if the androids didn't act autonomously? I mean, that's a thing. Frankenstein complex? I don't think that's going to be an issue in the extremely automated future of the Federation, no. Also, Frankenstein complex is kind of dumb anyways for several reasons. Let's not get into that. I don't know. We could workshop that. I don't want to get too much into the weeds. I like to say that a lot. I don't want to get too much into the weeds because I don't even know what the state of the galaxy is going to be by the time at which we get to TNG. I'm still working on Enterprise way over there. You know what I mean? But I will admit... Oh, sorry. Someone asked about Section 31. Section 31 is absolutely in the rewrite. In fact, Section 31 is going to be founded during our Enterprise. I'll give that away. Some of the main characters are going to be involved in the creation of Section 31. No guesses as to whom. You're wrong. It's Hoshi. So, Section 31 is going to be a whole thing, and we're going to build up to it. And I really want to lean into Section 31 being there in the background throughout the entire series, throughout the entire franchise. Because, and I said this about Canon Trek, and I mean this about our Trek, Section 31 are not evil at all. These are not people who have given in to their more base desires in order to accomplish evil acts in order to maintain some kind of totalitarian control. These are people who have somehow, without oversight, without laws or restrictions, managed to retain a semblance of good behavior and not give it into corruption or abuse over centuries. Think about that for a second. Really think about what that means. To be good without being forced to be good. Because they don't have any consequences for what they do. So, that's Section 31 in the rewrite. And that's how it's going to be. They're going to be there to do the things that have to be done in order to make things move forward, and they're going to do it very quietly in a way that no one's ever going to notice. You've seen my writing stuff, you've seen our Diablo. I have a feeling that most people won't even notice when Section 31 is behind something, because I'm not going to put a big sign over it saying it's them. You're already missing the point, Uthor, and we're already moving on from that. Will I be retaining the destroyed Borg tech left in the past? No. Obviously, okay, so, first of all, time travel works differently. Second of all, First Contact cannot, by definition, include time travel because of what I just mentioned. I mean, I did Savacom. That was such a cool scene. Will Malcolm and Hoshi ever get together? I haven't thought about it. I don't know. The only character that Hoshi is really close to right now in the rewrite is T'Pol, actually. The two of them have a very burgeoning friendship as of Season 1. Reed has been the hardest character to write for our Enterprise. I have character arcs and connecting paths and all sorts of stuff to do for all the characters across all of Season 1. And then there's Reed, who's just kind of there. And I don't know what to do with him. I'll figure it out at some point. Either way, I have been streaming way too late. I'm going to go ahead and chop off this Q&A. Tomorrow, we'll be playing Dawn of War, which is all one game. I'll see you.